Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Moon Podcast where I introduce you to a new beginning. I present to you a new subgenre of this podcast. As it is, we cover mental health, self-improvement, psychology and culture. To go with that, we have the art appreciation subgenre where I talk about art, the style of art, the artists, what shaped them, and how they influenced others. After all, we humans love art and music. Henceforth, we begin a new subgenre for music and combine it with literature. We will begin by diving straight into heavy metal, which is a great way to start. As a special gift, we will be looking into the origins of heavy metal. Thus, our exploration begins. Our story begins with Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath was an English heavy metal band that formed in Birmingham in 1968. The band members were Tony Iommi, the guitarist, Geezer Butler, the bassist, Bill Ward, the drummer, and of course there was John Michael Osbourne, the vocalist, who will later become known as Ozzy Osbourne. We will explore him in more depth shortly. It is no understatement that Black Sabbath was the pioneer of heavy metal. Very briefly, for those who don't know, heavy metal is a genre of rock music that started in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The main characteristics of heavy metal is its loud, powerful, aggressive sound to evoke emotional intensity with electric guitars, drumming, bass guitars, and passionate lyrics. Heavy metal represents rebellion, strength, power, togetherness, and emotion expression. The lyrics explore dark themes such as fear, anger, social injustice, and personal struggle. Heavy metal is not just music, it's a lifestyle. All of this is what characterized Black Sabbath. When we look at the themes of their music, they are rebellious with dark themes personified. Let's take a look at some of their songs. I recommend you go listen to them. War Pigs is a protest song about the military-industrial complex, rebelling against the evil rich and powerful who profit from war. It's an anti-war song. Check out these lines. Politicians hide themselves away. They only started the war. Why should they go out and fight? They leave that role to the poor. Time will tell on their power minds, making war just for fun, treating people just like pawns in chess. Wait till their judgment day comes. Speaking of war, they also protested nuclear apocalypse. During the 1960s and the 70s, there was a constant feeling of dread. People feared that they were going to be wiped out by nuclear war. There was an ongoing feeling of anxiety and fear there was going to be a nuclear explosions because of the Cold War. Black Sabbath rebelled against this with their song Electric Funeral, with such lyrics as reflex in the sky, warn you you're gonna die, storm coming you better hide from the atomic tide. All of the misery of war and fear-mongering is caused by the evil rich, the greedy and the corrupt. To that, Black Sabbath made another song called Lord of This World. Their lyrics are hard-hitting. You think you know, but you are never quite sure. Your soul is ill, but you will not find a cure. Your world was made for you by someone above, but you choose evil ways instead of love. The lyrics strike into the core of the evil of the rich and powerful elite, calling them out for their cowardice and their weakness, the emptiness of their souls and their lack of morals, hinting at the nepotism that got them into the positions they are in, abusing their power, how they cheated their way to the top. Black Sabbath compares the greed and corruption of the rich and powerful elites to forces of evil and the satanic. From here, we move on to the song itself titled Black Sabbath. It begins with the sound of a thunderstorm and a distant church bell before electric guitars blast through. This song is about evil encounters and supernatural forces, exploring fear, darkness and the unknown, with lines like these. What is this that stands before me? figure in black which points at me. Turn round quick and start to run. Find out I'm the chosen one. Oh no! It paints a horror story. So, what made Black Sabbath what it is known for? What inspired the band members? From here, we explore the band itself. Black Sabbath's music was inspired by such music as blues, jazz, psychedelia, and hard rock. They include The Who, Led Zeppelin, Jethro Tull, Cream, and Steppenwolf. Some of their literary influences were inspired by fantasy fiction, like The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, and horror by H.P. Lovecraft. Their main sources of inspiration came from Gothic literature, such as Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which explores existential dread, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is Gothic horror and vampire mythology, Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla, Washington Irving's The Legend of the Sleepy Hollow, and poetry from Edgar Allan Poe exploring madness, death, and the supernatural. Many of their visual influences came from the occult. The band used imagery of darkness, chaos, madness, and the grotesque, combined with Gothic motifs like fear, death, the mysterious, and the supernatural. The name Black Sabbath was based on the Gothic horror movie of the same name. It was released in the year 1963, directed by Mario Bava, starring Boris Karloff, along with the beautiful Susie Anderson and Michelle Mercier. The movie is an anthology of 3 horror stories with excellent visuals. This film was made in Italy, which is why the Italian title is I tre volti della paura, which translates to The Three Faces of Fear. It's a good film. I recommend you watch it. However, there is an even darker twist to the origin of Black Sabbath. One day, Ozzy Osbourne gave his friend Geezer Butler, the bassist, a black book on the occult. It was written in Latin and decorated with satanic pictures. Butler kept the book in a shelf next to his bed. One night after reading the book, Butler woke up and saw a large black figure standing at the foot of his bed, staring at him. Suddenly, the mysterious dark figure vanished. When Butler went to the shelf where he kept the book was gone. Shaken by this experience, he told Ozzy Osbourne what he saw. This became the foundation for Black Sabbath, the core of the band. Now, you might be wondering, what does any of this supernatural stuff have to do with art and music? Throughout history, artists, writers, and musicians used ancient magic such as alchemy and witchcraft symbols to connect the physical world with the spiritual realm, such as dreams. Such as the different alchemy symbols of the planets, the metals, and the gods related to them. For example, in terms of magical alchemy, tin represents the planet Jupiter, and it represents the Norse storm god Thor, which is where we got the name Thursday from. He represents physical strength, bravery, and protection, the archetypal warrior and protector. In ancient Canaanite mythology, he was known as Baal. In Greek, he is known as Zeus. In Roman, he is known as Jupiter, etc. Another example for contrast in terms of magical alchemy, copper represents the planet Venus, and it represents the Norse goddess of love, Frigga, which is where we get the name Friday from. She represents female energy, love, beauty, fertility, sex, and motherhood. In ancient Canaanite mythology, she is known as Astarte. In Greek, she is known as Aphrodite. Her Roman name is Venus, etc. I covered some of this knowledge of mythology in a previous video about the hero myth. Do you see a pattern yet? When we combine these metals together, what do we get? Bronze. Bronze is a strong metal that was used for weapons, tools, pottery, and other things. It was knowledge like this that joined magic with art, music, and science, etc. Thus we have the 7 days of the week, the 7 metals, the 7 alchemical planets, the 7 gods, 7 musical notes, etc. This is why the number 7 is considered to be a lucky number across many cultures around the world throughout history. Unlike the number 13, which is considered bad luck. All of this ancient knowledge is considered magic. It goes even further. The Ouroboros, for example, is a snake biting its tail, which symbolizes eternity and cyclical transformation. The yin-yang represents the joining of two opposing forces that work together as one, a way, going in one direction, something which I talked about in a previous video. When we look at art, we see symbolism everywhere. All of this relates to what Carl Jung studied and applied to psychology. He studied mythology, mystical texts, and art around the world and discovered there is something universal about the human consciousness and the unconscious, such as dreams. For example, the goat represents virility and masculine energy. The pomegranate fruit represents abundance and fertility. Again, these are symbols of Cyprus, the island where Aphrodite, the goddess of love, was born. It's also where there are many goats and pomegranate trees. All of these symbols, all this magic, all of this knowledge, it's about manipulating consciousness. This is why art and music has the ability to change our state of minds and help us feel better. Art uses visuals and colors, while music uses sound. The magic of the occult relates to art and music by using hidden symbols, mystical themes, and spiritual practices that add a sense of deeper meaning and transformation. Getting back to heavy metal music, it uses intense, powerful sound and emotionally charged themes to impact listeners' unconscious minds by providing catharsis, emotional release, and a sense of empowerment. Its aggressive energy can help listeners process difficult feelings, such as anger, sadness, or alienation in a safe and in a controlled way, allowing for emotional regulation and healing. The complex and the often dark lyrics resonate with fans who feel misunderstood, creating a strong sense of community and belonging. This connection to extreme emotional expression and shared identity helps heavy metal influence the unconscious by channeling raw emotions, stimulating higher cognitive responses, and creating psychological resilience rather than promoting violence or negativity. In this way, heavy metal functions almost like a ritualistic, transformative experience for its listeners, altering mood and offering a form of psychological renewal. Hence the link between the occult and the ancient knowledge of magic that is used in art and music. Now, for those who don't know, the occult is about ancient knowledge, hidden beliefs, and practices. It focuses on the supernatural powers, mysterious forces beyond ordinary human understanding or scientific explanation. It focuses on magic and mystical phenomena considered secret or esoteric. The word occult comes from the Latin word occultus, which means hidden or concealed. But why hidden? That's because for hundreds of years, people who were pagans and those who possessed none of the mainstream religious knowledge were persecuted, even killed. Spiritual traditions such as astrology, alchemy, ritual magic, mysticism, divination, such as tarot cards and anything that manipulates unseen forces. This is ancient pagan knowledge that predates Christianity. For centuries, the Christians persecuted pagans, destroyed their artwork and their traditions. You can see evidence of this in the Archaeological Museum of Larnaca in Cyprus. You will see many statues with their faces disfigured and heads missing, possibly destroyed. When you look carefully at some of the statues, you will see marks on them left by strikes of blades, of swords and axes. These were not accidents. They were deliberate hits with immense force, hell-bent on destroying them. Some claim these were accidents, but the evidence speaks for itself. Defacing a statue is no accident, but deliberate destruction. The early Christians were so full of hate, so intolerant, that they massacred anyone who wasn't Christian and destroyed anything they considered heresy. This is the legacy of Christianity. The pagans were so overwhelmed they couldn't rebel. Henceforth, all pagans had to hide their beliefs and traditions in order to live. All but little of pagan knowledge survives to this day. I recommend you read 2 books on this topic. The Darkening Age, The Christian Destruction of the Classical World by Catherine Nixie, and Making and Breaking the Gods by Troels Myrup Christensen. It is from here that we go even further into the occult. There was a man who made a massive impact on the 20th century. His name was Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was an English occultist, a magician, a poet, and a mountaineer. He was born in the year 1875 and died in the year 1947. Aleister Crowley is famously known for founding a religion called Thelema. Thelema is the Greek word for divine will, which is the religion. It centers itself on the following principle, quote, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," unquote. Aleister Crowley wrote the famous book called The Book of the Law. In 1904, he went to Egypt with his wife Rose Kelly for a honeymoon and to study the occult. When he saw the Egyptian artifact, the Stele of Revealing, catalogued as the number 666, he felt possessed in the state of trance. He immediately began to write his thesis while it was fresh in his mind. It was a spiritual vision. He wrote non-stop for 3 days, from the 8th of April to the 10th of April 1904. It has been speculated that the book was dictated to him by a spiritual entity called Aiwas. Thus, he wrote the 3 chapters of his book, which became the Book of the Law. Basically, the book is a spiritual philosophical text that teaches people that everyone is unique and has a true will they must follow. Every person has a unique purpose in life, a calling, so to speak. The idea is to live a free, authentic life, guided by one's will rather than be dictated by external forces like religion or social norms. According to Aleister Crowley, love is the active force that supports and directs the will within all of us. This relates to what I talked about in a previous video about love as will. The core principle is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Another quote from the book says, every man and every woman is a star. It was ideas like these that made Aleister Crowley a controversial figure in the 20th century. While everyone was made to follow strict religious social rules, Aleister Crowley represented freedom and rebellion. All of this goes back to the core of Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, and heavy metal. They represent freedom and rebellion against evil institutions, using images of the occult, gothic literature, and horror. Even Ozzy Osbourne himself sang a song called Mr. Crowley as an exploration of Aleister Crowley's beliefs and his lifestyle. Although he captures the fascination with Aleister Crowley with skepticism, expressing the allure and the dark intrigue surrounding his legacy, I tend to believe that Ozzy Osbourne made the song a tribute to him as a mysterious cautionary tale not to mess with anyone who deals with magic, with lines such as, "Mr. Crowley, what went on in your head? Oh, Mr. Crowley, did you talk to the dead? Was it polemically sent? I want to know what you meant." Regardless of what Aleister Crowley stood for, he will be forever remembered as the mysterious figure who influenced heavy metal. Heavy metal still inspires us to this very day, and we have Ozzy Osbourne and Aleister Crowley to thank for that. Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne's legacy goes beyond rock music. They transformed music and culture by blending blues, hard rock, gothic literature, and occult rebellion to create heavy metal as a powerful voice against conformity and corruption. Their music deals with dark, emotional, and philosophical themes, symbolizing a struggle between good and evil. Ozzy Osbourne's connection to Aleister Crowley highlights heavy metal's deeper exploration of will and morality. Ultimately, Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne established heavy metal as an art form and a modern myth of rebellion, inspiring generations to challenge authority and embrace freedom, embracing the will within. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Moon Podcast. There will be more episodes like this to come. I recommend you go and listen to Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne, as well as checking out some of the literature that inspired them. Take good care of yourselves.